coming to the end of lambing pretty much in Hexhamshire now, and the fields are full of lambs with their mothers. There'll be a lot of tired farmers around, I guess. Even today, and even with half decent weather, it's hard work, and the farmers are up early in the morning and through the night for weeks on end, making sure that the lambs are born safely, that they survive, that there is a flock. But once in the field, they are kind of left to their own devices and seen occasionally. The story from St. John's Gospel we have today, the teaching of Jesus, speaks of care of the flock of a very different order. He talks about the shepherd who leads the sheep out into the field in the mornings, and they follow him. He calls them by name. They are all individuals, and he brings them back in the evening, and they spend the night locked in with a gatekeeper in safety. How precious those sheep are. They're not just numbers, they are individuals. It's difficult for me to understand this, although I know that even today there will be shepherds and farmers in Hexhamshire who know each individual of their flock. They know their sheep. But I suppose when you think about it, even within living memory, it was quite normal for a farm to have a flock of 50 ewes. You got by with 50 ewes. Incredible when you think about it. But those sheep were valuable. They were precious. I remember seeing a photograph of, Derek Swallow it was, with some of his sheep with a Leicester top that he'd sold during the war for £40. I think it was more than £40. When you think about it, that was 8 weeks' wages for one sheep. That sheep was precious. It was worth a lot. And the sheep that Jesus is speaking of, those sheep are precious. They are known to the shepherd. And he speaks of himself as the shepherd, and he also uses quite an arresting image. He speaks of himself as the door, as the gate through which the sheep pass, through which they pass out in the morning, out into the world to find their daily food, through which they pass back at night to shelter and to safety. He is the gate that keeps them safe. He is the shepherd who knows his flock, who calls them by name. The gateway, the door, is that through which they must pass, and he is that doorway. He is the assurance of their safety. When I visit people in hospital, they are in single rooms mostly, and I stand at the door and I knock, and I go in if I'm invited, and the first thing I do is try and find out their name. What shall I call you? By what name are you known? So that they know that I am interested in them as a person. I want to know who they are, and I tell them who I am, that we may call one another by our names and not simply be anonymous individuals. And they know when they see me go in, they know that when they see me go in my collar, that I am there as the vicar. Last week, a man I went to visit, he was delirious with an infection, and in so many ways couldn't make sense of what was going on. And yet when he saw me come through the door, he said, "You're the vicar." He was stone deaf, by the way. He said, "You're the vicar." And then he said, "I'm a Catholic." But actually he was quite pleased to see me, really. And I wrote down my name, and he gave me his, and we began by writing to make sense of our relationship with one another. We know one another by name. The Good Shepherd knows us by name. When you think about it, it's not that crazy an idea. Would you entrust your mother to the care of somebody who didn't know her name? Would I entrust my child to somebody to whom she was simply a number or a date of birth. Surely not. We expect more. We expect people to be interested in us and in those we love as people, to be known by name, to have a relationship. And that is what Christ is speaking of, in the relationship that he has with his flock, with us, with the invitation he gives to us to follow him out into the world, to follow him back into the place of shelter, whether it be the church or the home, where he is present with us through the hours of darkness. But he speaks of those who do not enter through the gate. He speaks of those who, as it were, jump over the wall into the enclosure. What are they doing? They surely aren't interested in the name of the sheep. They simply come there to take and to steal what they want. They're interested in what they can get for themselves. They have no interest in the welfare of the flock. They're just there to take what they want of themselves. And he warns them to beware those people who enter the sheepfold like a thief, climbing over the wall and not coming through the gate. There are such people, he says. You are not to trust them. They come simply for themselves, like the devil, to kill and to destroy. He says, I am come that you may have life, that my sheep may have life abundantly. So let's give thanks in this Easter season that Christ who lives is the one who is our good shepherd, that Christ who lives is our way opening out into life, there with us, leading us, calling us by name, knowing us, guiding us, offering us his word of life, sheltering us and protecting us. Amen. The psalm which is set for today, you won't be surprised to hear, is Psalm 23. It's very appropriate too in these strange times when it seems we still live, up to a point certainly, in the shadow of death, in times of uncertainty, when we are beset and surrounded by things that are fearful. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul. He guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Let us remember in our prayers today particularly those who lead us and care for us, who call us by name, those who care particularly for those amongst us who are ill, who are vulnerable, those who are afraid, for carers, for staff in our hospitals, for good neighbours and friends, for those who place the life of others first before their own interests, and give thanks to God for them. Amen.